Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to take a minute just to welcome everybody to this amazing interview that we're about to have. I know there are just a lot of people that are really looking for that good insight when it comes to trying to find that work-life balance and trying to live that life that you want to live. So I was really pleased to get connected with Jeffrey Shaw as a fellow author and business owner. And the more I get to know him, the more I'm just really impressed with him. So I'm just excited to share this interview with you guys today because you're going to learn some really good stuff. And I just also want to welcome everybody. For those of you who are brand new to today's call, I'm Tara Nolan, and I'm known as the financial advisor that helps you achieve and retain the lifestyle that you want. And you're probably going, well, why are we doing this interview? And I've started this interview series just to interview people that I find interesting. And so I figure as long as I'm interested in getting some value, then I just want to share that with you guys because it's all about living a bigger life and a better life. Money is something that we need, but money is not the be all end all. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. So let me just take a minute to read Jeffrey's bio because he's pretty an amazing guy. And then we'll just get into the conversation that we're going to have and we'll go from there. So here we go. How many people can say that they've never worked for somebody else? I can't. I have worked for other people. Selling eggs door to door at 14 years old became a lifetime of self-employment. As 14 years old. As a speaker and a small business consultant, Jeffrey Shaw helps self-employed and small business owners gain control of their business in what seems like otherwise uncontrollable circumstances. So drawing on his experience as a renowned portrait photographer, Jeffrey shows business owners how to see business through a different lens and strategies to compose those often chaotic pieces of life into business sustainable success. Jeffrey's TEDx LincolnSquare talk is featured on TED.com. That's a big deal. And he's the host of a top-rated podcast, The Self-Employed Life, author of Lingo, Discover Your Ideal Customer's Secret Language and Make Your Business Irresistible, and the forthcoming book that we're going to talk about today, specifically, The Self-Employed Life, Business and Personal Development Strategies that Create Sustainable Success. So, Jeffrey, I know that you're going to share some really important information today, and it's going to be good for people, for their businesses, for their families. So thank you for being here, Jeffrey. You have all this experience as a communicator and an innovator. So
thank you.
Say hi to everyone, please.
I'm glad to be here. And by the way, the book is already out. I realize the bio still says forthcoming, but the book came out May 4th and it's been crazy since then. So I guess we never went back and changed the bio. But I love that, your thing, which I totally agree with, is about the life, about the lifestyle. And the life you create, whether it's through money or the self-employed business that you start. And that's why, for me, the title of my book, The Self-Employed Life, the life part was really important because to me, that's what we're all going for. We're all striving to live the life that we want to live. So.
Absolutely. So before we jump in, I just have to say, your website is fabulous. And just talked a little bit, your About Me section really caught my eye. And you get into your values and what you stand for before you even have your bio information. Can you talk a little bit about your values and why you chose to do that? That's very unique and I love it.
Yeah, it was an interesting journey. To be honest with you, I've never had an about page because I've always been self-employed. My business I've always been my own brand. So I figured, why do you need an about page, right? Until I really stepped into owning my values and letting the world know what I value, what I support. It's been interesting to look at market research. I'm definitely much more of a experiential learner and teacher, right? So I try to guide people based on observation and real life experience because I'm in the trenches right with you all. But I also think we have to look at some data and look at research. And research shows that unlike business in the past, today, the more people understand who you are as a brand, the more that you let the world know what you stand for, you're more likely to attract those clients that you're meant to serve, but it's also just respect. What I find is people don't have to agree with my values. They don't have to have the same values, but they respect you for sharing them and standing up for them. Of course, it's wonderful when it attracts people that share your values, but I don't require that I work with people that have the exact same values or political affiliation that I do at all. But as long as I'm not going to shy. I'm not going to shy away. And quite honestly, Tara, you're talking to a guy who came out at the age of 44 years old, right? And what I always say is nothing is going to put me back in the closet, right? So that brings me a lot of conviction to show up in the world in what I believe in. And I can go real quickly through those values, just kind of give you a sense of what each of them are.
Yes,
I
please.
honed it in onto 6 core values. By far, the most important one to me is acceptance. Right? It's believing that everybody deserves to be seen. And that's both true on a personal level and on a business level. It's why I fight as hard as I do for my coaching clients for their success, because I can't stand when somebody talented or has a good product isn't seen. And it's usually the reason they're not seen is usually because of their own business practices or their brand messaging is disconnected from the audience they want to reach. It drives me crazy. So acceptance is a really big one for me because I want everybody in the world to feel accepted and I want businesses to get the attention they deserve. Second is gratitude. Now, for me, having been a photographer now for 36 years, gratitude to me is a little different. I actually wanted to use the word beauty, but it just wasn't resonating for me enough. So I put it as gratitude. But really what it is the way I live. I see beauty everywhere, right? And from that seeing beauty everywhere comes gratitude. But the photographer's eye in me, I just can't unsee. So I love architecture, love architecture. Creatively, architecture is one of the most inspiring things to me. That's why I live in a city, because I love urban development and walking around and looking at the genius of mankind to build things. The third is relationship. I mean, what else is there in life other than your relationships? But to me, it's not just my own relationships, which I focus on, but it's also creating relationships with others. And one of the ways I do that personally is I host one Sunday a month. I host at my home in Miami, what I call Waffle Sunday. And so one Sunday a month, we just had our first one post-pandemic last Sunday. And I just invite anybody and everybody, and they can invite anybody and everybody they want to come to my home on a Sunday morning, and I make them homemade waffles. And they're really good waffles. Like they're from scratch, and I separate the eggs and add a little vanilla. And for Christmas, we do eggnog waffles. I mean, they're good. So it's not just about my own relationships. It's also helping people build relationships with another. Fourth value is impact. To me, that is entirely why I get up in the morning. It's to make an impact on the world. It's to help business owners make the impact they want to make in the world. Next would be trust. Now, it's not just trust in the way you build it for yourself, but trusting in something bigger than ourselves. Whether that's a faith, whether it's spirit, universe, whatever it is, you have to trust in something bigger than yourself. And this has been a big learning lesson for me because particularly for self-employed business owners who tend to walk around and go through life as if the weight of the world is on their shoulders. Until you believe in something bigger than you, you can't go to higher levels because you're limited by what you can carry on those shoulders. So trust is a big value for me. Trust in just something that is unknown to me. And then last is support. At the end of the day, everything I do is in support of other people. It's what I love to do. And I really paid attention to what brings me the greatest amount of joy. While I have loved building my own businesses and have enjoyed every bit of my self-employed journey, I get far more pleasure out of helping other people build their business than I even do my own. And that's why I value support as much as I do. So those are my 6 values.
So Jeffrey, those are inspiring. And I just wanted to share that, like when I started in the business of finance, I worked for another company and we just sold everybody insurance and put them into an IRA. And early on I was asking, I'm like, okay, this is good, but when do we start helping people? And they just looked at me like, we don't understand your question. And I was like, a monkey can sell someone some insurance in an IRA. And I said, those are great tools. But when do we start to go, what does this person need or this family need? And how do we tailor things so that it's working for them? And it was so funny because they just looked at me like, we don't understand the question. And that's when I knew right away, I'm like, this isn't resonating with me because this isn't what I want to do. I want to be helping people, and these are tools, but it's a bigger. And I love how you said that you have to understand something bigger
Yeah.
than just like the mechanics of what you're doing.
Yeah. And and that corporate mentality has a far bigger effect on small businesses and self-employed business owners than we realize, because it's what we see. It's what we experience as consumers. So it becomes like this rote habit. And it's one of the core problems of self-employed and small business owners is not having examples of doing business another way. And yet, Tara, I find innately there's something nagging at self-employed business owners that they don't feel great about the way they're doing business. They don't feel great about some of, and it's probably not working, right? So they're working twice as hard or three times harder than they need to. They don't even feel great about what they're doing, but until somebody shows them another way, they just keep doing that way. And they set an example. Mm-hmm.
Talk about that piece, because I think one of the challenges I know for me and in my business as I was growing it's finding the people who resonate with what you're doing. And when you're doing something different and you're trying to help people in a different way, people are almost suspicious, like, what's your angle? Like,
Yeah.
what are you? Every other person treats me poorly and just tells me to give me their money and go and shut up.
Yeah.
It takes a while to connect with people when you're bringing a different message. So how do you talk to your small business owners about it?
Oh, gosh, when I first started speaking on stages and I would come off the stage, I cannot tell you how many people would come up to me and say, "Thank you. I feel like you gave me permission." And I honestly didn't know what I was giving them permission for the longest time. I'm like, okay, and until I started asking back, "What do you feel I gave you permission for?" And people started saying, "I feel like you gave me permission to do business in a way that I've always wanted to, right? Or to do business in a way that always felt better to me." And so you're right. I mean, it's hard to get those examples, but here's the good news. And I really, really believe this is the good news. Business has evolved. I've been in business for 36 years. I'm pre-email. Get that around your head. Obviously, I started when I was like 10, right? now, not quite that young. But I was young. But so I can actually, I can speak to this evolution. And here's the really good news. The good news is that consumers today, and by the way, Tara, I always remind people, don't forget, you're also a consumer. I don't understand why we don't pay more attention to what works for us and do business the same way, right? I think I did a YouTube video or an article for Entrepreneur Magazine, and one of them, I actually, it's the article for Entrepreneur Magazine, where that was market the way you want to be marketed too. Like sometimes it's that simple. But the good news is that the world of business, the world in general, has evolved to the point where people make a decision based on how they feel about you as a business owner or a brand than ever before. They no longer make a decision on whether you're the best in your field. This is hard for a lot of people to take, but you don't get hired anymore because you're the best at what you do. Because you can be the best at what you do and people may not align with you or like you.
Right.
You get hired because people feel like you get them. We're all, as humans, craving to be seen, heard, and understood. The business owners and brands that show up making us feel seen, heard, and understood win. They may not even be the best in the field. You have to obviously hit a level of acceptance and quality and be really good at it. But honestly, this too. Anybody that reaches out to me for coaching, I don't have to make them better at what they do. They're already spending too much time trying to get better at what they do.
Right.
So that's never the issue. They're already good enough, if not really good or excellent at what they do. That's never the issue. The issue is helping them put brand messaging out in the world that lets their ideal customers know that they get that customer. And that's what inspires somebody to hire you. So the good news is that I feel like the world has evolved to be at a better position for small and self-employed business owners.
So talk to us a little bit about your evolution. You said you sold eggs when you were 14 and then you were a photographer. So like, how did you get into that? Like, were you passionate about your art and then you turned that into a business, or did you start the business? And how did that happen?
So I literally became a photographer because I had paralyzing shyness. I mean, it's the craziest reason to go into business. I mean, my father had a darkroom in the house and the chemicals intrigued me. So I used to work in the darkroom just to see, I used to print his photographs, or I like to say the first dollar I ever made in photography came from the Roosevelt estate in Hyde Park, New York, because one of my neighbors worked at the estate and they needed photographs printed of show horses. And so my first dollar I ever made from, I think that's a pretty good first paycheck. It came from the Roosevelt estate. So I was intrigued with the chemicals, but then I started taking pictures, and it was actually ideal for me because I'm not kidding when I say I had paralyzing shyness. Even at 14, when I was knocking on doors to sell eggs, I pretty much wanted to throw up. I was really stretching myself, which I talk a lot about in my book. Like, why do any of us put ourselves through what we do? I mean, being self-employed is not the easy road. And I truly believe what inspires us the most, what motivates us the most, to take on those challenges that we do to stretch ourselves, is that we want to find in ourselves more of what we're capable of than we currently believe. And I knew there was greatness in me. I knew I could achieve big things. The shyness was like this wall between me and achieving that, and I needed to get rid of it. So I was stretching myself out of my comfort zone by knocking on these doors. So I chose photography as a career because it allowed me to hide out in the darkroom in high school and not have to go to gym class. Actually, I had to get permission to graduate because I missed 4 years of gym. But I brought a lot of awards to the high school because of my photography, so they let me slide. So it was ideal, and just physically having a camera between me and the world helped with my shyness. The irony, Tara, is it often is in a lot of careers, I was really good at it. So next thing I know, I was getting national awards. I was 16 years old, going on tour with Kodak and Gallery. And then I go to photography school and I won every award there. And next thing I knew, the student body voted me to be the student representative to speak at graduation. So I'm like, great. This photography thing that I was using to hide from the world actually just threw me center stage. So, and then you just work with it, right? I mean, I can still identify as introverted, sometimes shy, but we outgrow those boundaries. We can outgrow those boundaries. I used to identify as having a fear of heights, and now I love to zip line. Like, we can outgrow so many of the mindsets. We have to outgrow the mindsets. That's largely what my book is about, and why there's so much personal development in it, is we have to outgrow those mindsets in order to get to the next level of our business success. So yeah, I've been a photographer now for 36 years, and in about 12 years ago now, I took it upon myself to start receiving training as a coach. I had a coach prior to then for 7 years, who I worked with 3 times a month for 7 years. I don't think I ever missed a call. Loved receiving coaching. So when he retired, I decided I wanted to do for others what he did for me. So I went to the same coaching school he did. I received the initial coach training. And I never stopped. Once I started coaching and supporting others, that's when I realized I liked building other people's businesses more than my own. So over the past 12 years, I've kind of been doing less and less photography, to the point now that I do very, very little, so that I could increase my ability to spend more time coaching other people and speaking and writing books and all that. So I know I get asked that question all the time. Like, how did you go from A to B? To me, right? But to me, it's just a natural, as for many of it is, it's just a natural transition, a connecting of the dots. My photography brain works a certain way, which is what makes me good at what I do as a brand message consultant and working with business owners on their self-employed ecosystem. Because my brain as a photographer, I think it was natural in the beginning, but it was mastered over 36 years as I see what other people can't see. I can see what's marketable in people that they can't see. I can see the core brand message that they can't see. I can see what I call their invasive species in their business. I can see what's breaking their business that they can't see. And like a photographer, I'm really good at taking pieces and making a whole. That's what a photographer does. We take various pieces, pixels, if you will, and we compose it into a portrait. So my brain just naturally works that way, and it makes it really easy for me so to me, it feels linear, even though it may not look that way.
So I have to ask you this question while I have you here is, I have horses, and the trick for a good picture of the horse is that their ears are forward and not like sideways. Yeah. So what is your trick as a photographer to get that good horse picture?
Well, first of all, horses are, I love that you asked that, but I always said in my 36 years, I always told people I would only photograph people with their horses as almost their pet, right? Because show horse photography is so specific. Like, you have to really know. But So noises, but it's the same thing with kids. But first of all, you have to find out how smart the horses are. So freaking smart that you have to. I first asked the owner, like, if I make a noise, is it going to spook the horse?
Right.
Right. But same thing with kids. It's like a clicking noise, or I do a really good Donald Duck thing.
Oh, that's a great noise.
Works great with kids, and it usually can get the attention of a horse as long as it doesn't spook them.
I love it. So I love that progression that you took through, to become this business. And I love that you talked about giving back. So you got this great coaching, because I love having coaching. And so how did you evolve that, though, to become then a writer and an author and a speaker? Because I mean, it's like you said, it's linear, but those are like some big progressions as well.
Yeah. Although it is linear. I mean, so what happened in the photo industry, I mean, I literally had, and partly being shy, and I had a very niche photography business. I photographed very affluent families. So I had a pretty small, business and number. And I had a really high retention rate, like 60 to 70% retention rate. So I would often be working with the same clients and just a few new clients every year. So it was a very sheltered world, and I just had my head down doing my thing. And I really didn't, as we often do when we're success minded, I didn't, as much as we think we compare ourselves to other people, and we do on Facebook, but at the same time, we almost are always so eager to assume that we're not doing as well as somebody else. So while I was so busy building this photography business, I assumed I was light years behind my peers until, a lot of years into it, I picked my head up, if you will. Actually, what happened was I was driving with a friend of mine who's the photographer I respected the most and admired the most. And he's a really good friend. And I was going through a divorce, and I was sharing with him the divorce settlement, and he made me pull off the road. He's like, what? He's like, if that's your settlement, how much money are you making? And I, for the first time, disclosed it. And that's when I found out, it's like, oh, is that unusual? Like, I had no idea. Like, I just thought everybody was doing better than me. So I slowly started opening the can of worms to let people in the photo industry know that I had built a successful business, and I wanted to share with them how I did it. So then I started speaking entirely in the photo industry, photo associations and conferences. But whenever I would speak, people in the hotel or the banquet room would come up to me and say, everything you're teaching has nothing to do with photography. I'm like, I know, they're just really good business concepts. And I wanted to spread my wings. Once again, I wanted to get bigger. So that's what inspired me to write my first book, Lingo. Lingo to me was my breakout card. It was broader business concepts that applied to any business. It's the strategy of brand messaging to attract your ideal customers, to understand your customers' lingo, like their unspoken emotions. So that was my coming out card yet again, to tell the world that there was more to me than the photo industry. And that was in 2018. So my first out of photo industry speaking gigs were in 2018. I didn't know whether I'd read other books, but you and I have a good friend in common, AJ Harper. Once, and AJ was my editor for Lingo. AJ changed my whole world when it comes to writing, so that I now see myself as a serial author. So I wrote The Self-Employed Life, came out just May of this year. Already ideas are forming for the third one, and I see myself as a serial author right up to the day I can't write anymore. So it is still linear. It's like one piece led to another, but like I said, and if you look at the whole sequence, as I think it is for many of us, it's just constantly broadening, right? Which is fundamentally what I teach in my book, is that your level of success is proportionate to your personal development. Right. So in order to grow further in business, you first have to develop yourself, and they play nicely to each other. You do the inner work, you get out of limited thinking, you step into what you fully deserve, you expand what you're capable of, you start believing in yourself, what other people see in you that you may not see in yourself yet. And I refer to it as kind of expanding your capacity. As you expand your capacity through personal development, the success you're striving for naturally comes in to fill up that space. And then you increase your capacity again. And once again, higher levels of success come in to fill up that space. So that has been my journey over 36 years, a constant expansion of capacity, filling it up with space, because I'm always putting in, as most of us are, I'm always putting a lot of hard work. The problem is that if you're not doing the personal development work, the hard work you're doing is like overstuffing a sack. There's no place for it to go. There's no place for it to work because you're working against yourself. You're putting in the effort, but you've got mindsets that are pushing back. Whereas one of my big awarenesses in life was ambition has never been a question for me. But I realized that there was a point where I realized that it was ambition with the brakes on, because I hadn't gotten rid of the things that were holding me back, like self-doubt and insecurities and feeling like I'm always overlooked, like these things I was telling myself. So it was ambition with the brakes on, and you don't really get anywhere.
I can totally relate to that. And
I think a lot of us can.
But yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question, and you can tell me that you don't want to get into this or not. But as a financial advisor, I see a lot of people that are in jobs and holding down jobs because they need the healthcare, and they're not following their passion. So I guess I just feel like, and it's becoming more and more passionate for me, that if we could just have healthcare for everybody, I think that would just create a boon for people to be able to pursue their passions and create small businesses if they weren't worried about healthcare. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
First of all, there's nothing I don't have an opinion on. I definitely have an opinion on this. So first of all, I started a LinkedIn Live show called From Corporate Life to Self-Employed Life for this very reason, because after the pandemic was over, I started really thinking about all those people that so-called were lucky to still have their job, but who isn't reassessing their life right now? And I'm wondering, are they happy? How many people are sitting in jobs that don't even fulfill them or make them happy? And again, going back to my value of acceptance, that drives me crazy. Like, that's horrible existence in life. That's not what life is about. And if we haven't learned that life is short in the past year, what the hell is it going to take?
Right.
So I started the show because I wanted to really help people take that brave move. And like you, what I found is that one of the number one reasons they hang onto a job they're not happy in is health insurance. Interestingly enough, Tara, and I may send the video to the CEO, but I was contacted by an insurance company who's kind of new in the US market, and they want to reach small business owners. And we're in conversation about, I might possibly play a role as a spokesperson for this very reason. And the reason you might wonder, like, why would I want to be a spokesperson for a health insurance company? It's for this reason. It's like, if this company can give affordable access to people with health insurance, and people can realize they can pay for it on their own at not a lot of cost, let alone it'd be great if it was, available to everybody, but even at a lower cost. I mean, if that's what keeping you from living your dream, that's sad. So we need to fix that problem. I agree with you 100%. My partner went through that. My partner worked for Disney. He was furloughed during the pandemic. He wanted to go back to that job for his health insurance. I had to convince him. In fact, I sent him to my agent. I said, you can buy your own health insurance.
Right.
But he had been a corporate guy his whole life. So that to him, that was foreign talk.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We need to solve that problem. 100%.
Like, isn't that seems so simple to me? Like, and even, I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on, we can help business owners by doing this. And that seems like something everyone would get behind.
Yeah. And you know what? And it plays, again, so well into my overall philosophies about business, which at the core principle of my book is that when you're self-employed, you're entering uncontrollable circumstances. The only thing you can control is the environment you set up for the results you want. And I coach people how to set up the right environment for their business success. What that is basically is preventive care, right? Because preventive always costs less than not. And that's same true with healthcare. Preventive healthcare, wellness programs it's so much more cost effective to give everybody health insurance for preventive care, because it's so expensive to cure the problems. And it's the same thing in business. Like, that's why I'm so committed and passionate about what I do, because I want to help small business owners have a healthy and thriving self-employed ecosystem, because it's the most efficient and cost-effective way to having a healthy business. There's less cost to pay. There's less, it's easier, but your ecosystem of your business has to be thriving, and there's all the pieces that have to work. And that's what I do.
I love it. So we're almost out of time. So Jeffrey, can you please just share, like, what is like one big takeaway for everybody who's looking at getting your book, or what should they go? I need to read this book. Like,
yeah. I guess I'll just play off what we just said, is that It's about the ecosystem. And this was such an eye-opening concept to me. And now it seems so simple. It is that your business is like an ecosystem in nature. There are elements that have to work and thrive in order for the whole system to work. If one thing is off, it can kill the whole ecosystem. Now, I'm not going to be over dramatic and say you're going to kill your business, but I can absolutely guarantee you almost everyone on the planet is working harder than they need to because they haven't fixed what's broken in their self-employed ecosystem. And it can be fixed. And it's what you see in other people when they look like they're in complete flow and things are aligned and it's moving forward. I mean, I get that feedback from people all the time. It's like, how do you get done as much as you get done? How does everything look sweet? How is it? It's like, well, because my ecosystem is healthy and thriving. I've done the work to make sure all the elements are in place, harmonized, and working. I just want more than anything, that concept. I would love for people to own that concept that your business is an ecosystem and it all needs to be healthy. And when it is, it will thrive.
Jeffrey, I'm going to take that because I love in my finance, I talk about like your life is a pie and there's three big areas. There's what you pay for government institutions and taxes and what you pay to financial institutions. And then there's your lifestyle. And I love what you're saying about this ecosystem is before we start trying to make your life smaller, why don't we look at everything you're doing and see where we can streamline and maybe make some better choices before we start going, well, how do we make your life small?
Yeah,
I'm going to use that ecosystem. I'm going to quote you on that because I'm resonating with you right now. I love that.
Excellent. That's like this. The basis of the whole book is literally teaching people. The three sections of the ecosystem are personal development, business strategies, and daily habits.
Okay.
Like, you nail down those three categories, things are going to click.
And so, I mean, I love everything that we've talked about today, but just to foot stomp for people, Jeffrey, is you're doing something that you've lived. So like you didn't just read about this or start coaching, but you've grown your own business. You worked with a coach and you're paying it forward now. And now you're taking all of this life experience and you've got the right amount of vulnerability because you've had life experiences like we all have. And I think this is all baked into your work. And
it is. And it's, because of honestly going all the way back to my shyness, like my entire life has been about personal development, right? So I've done the work. Like I know and I'm in the trenches. Like I'm still self-employed and so it's all really relatable. And I love the fact that people read the book. They feel like I'm really with them. And that was my goal because I am. It's all I've ever known. I have a harder time, which is good. I mean, I do a lot of speaking in the corporate world. And for that, I just, again, show up authentically and scratch my head. I'm like, why are you all trying to fix your employee engagement problems from the inside? Like, why don't you hire the right people in the first place? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get how corporations think. Like, why do you just bring everybody to the company and then you try to fix them? It makes no sense to me as an entrepreneur. So I do a lot of speaking in HR. I'm like, you need to have better recruiting messaging to get the right people there in the first place. Don't try to fix them and change them once they're there. Get the right people.
I love it. So Jeffrey, how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you and they want to buy your book? What's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Absolutely. Well, the book can be found at theselfemployedlife.me, theselfemployedlife.me. And by the way, there's a fantastic tool on that page, or you can get to it directly at selfemployedassessment.com. The assessment is amazing. I had a custom algorithm written that you answer 6 questions and it gives you back customized results so that you can understand where in the ecosystem you're weakest and then what you can do about it. It's a fantastic tool. So selfemployedassessment.com to get that. The book is available all over, many places online, but you can get all the links to everywhere you can buy it online at theselfemployedlife.me.
I love it. So everybody listening today, don't forget that you can share this interview with all of your friends who may not have been able to dial in live today. And I'm really looking forward to sharing a must-know topic with you next week. So Jeffrey, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your insights. And for those of you listening, I can't wait to hear about all your success. I will talk with you later. Bye.